So on June 4th, Eisenhower delayed his plan. Late in the evening of June 5th, Eisenhower got a new weather report. The clouds were breaking up. He also received a decoded message from the Germans. It indicated that Hitler knew about the buildup of troops in the southern United Kingdom. But Hitler thought it was a distraction. He would not send extra troops to Normandy. Eisenhower decided to go ahead with his plan, known as Operation Neptune, the next morning. Allied troops would land on 5 Normandy beaches on June 6th. The beaches of Normandy. Allied forces spread their attack over 50 miles, 80 kilometers, and 5 beaches. More than 5,000 ships and 13,000 aircraft were involved in the attack. While it was still dark, Allied planes bombed German pillboxes atop the bluffs overlooking the beaches of Normandy. But the weather was windy and cloudy. The pilots missed many of their targets. The Allies also flew paratroopers behind the enemy to capture bridges and roads. But the winds shifted. Many men were pushed off course. Others were shot down by German soldiers. As soon as it was light outside, the Higgins boats sailed up to the beaches. They carried soldiers, trucks, and tanks. The tanks, called Sherman DDs, were supposed to float to shore, but they were swallowed by rough waves. All but 3 sank. A strong tide pulled some of the landing craft off course. Despite the difficulties, soldiers scrambled up the steep beaches. They pitched dynamite into the pillboxes. They blew up barbed wire fences with torpedoes fired through long steel tubes called bangalores. Meanwhile, the German army was confused. Some phone lines were down, and German generals received conflicting reports. Some heard paratroopers had landed near Calais, France, but this turned out to be a distraction. Finally, one German officer at Normandy got through to the generals over the phone. He held up the receiver so they could hear the gunshots. It would take time for the German tanks and troops to get to Normandy, but a couple of German pilots were nearby. They jumped into their planes and flew to Normandy, where they shot at Allied soldiers on the beaches. German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel said that once the battle started, it would be the longest day. By the end of the first day, approximately 10,000 Allied men were killed, wounded, or missing. But by nighttime, the Allied soldiers had a foothold in France. In the United Kingdom, many farms were separated by rows of low bushes called hedgerows, but in France, the hedgerows were tall mounds topped with trees. Deep ditches lined either side of the hedgerows, and shrubs covered the sides. Soldiers got lost and confused because of the hedgerows. German soldiers hid in the ditches. As the Allied soldiers climbed over the hedgerows, they often came face to face with German rifles. The British and Canadians fought their way south to Caen, France. The Americans pushed further west and then turned around. The Allied armies planned to meet at Falaise, France. The fighting continued for 2 months. Finally, by mid-August, the Allies had almost surrounded the Germans at Falaise. The Allies squeezed the German soldiers into an area with only one way out. This became known as the Falaise Pocket. The Allies kept up the pressure by bombing the German troops. On August 20th, 1944, the Allies surrounded the German army and closed the gap. The Germans were beaten. The Battle of Normandy was over. On August 25th, Allied soldiers marched into Paris, the capital of France. French people waved their nation's flag. The bells of Notre Dame Cathedral rang. France was free from German rule. Winning the Battle of Normandy changed the course of World War II, 1939 to 1945. It gave the Allies control in the north of Europe. It also started a losing streak for Germany, and on May 8, 1945, the German army surrendered. Today, children chase waves and build sand castles on the Normandy beaches. But on top of the bluffs are rows of graves and the remains of some pillboxes. They remind visitors of the lives lost during the Battle of Normandy.